Have you ever felt like you've made a mistake so big that there's no going back? Or maybe you've done everything right, but it feels like you're being overlooked. Whether you're the one who strayed or the one who stayed, the parable of the prodigal son has something to say to all of us. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most powerful and relatable stories ever told, a story about forgiveness, unconditional love, and second chances. What makes this parable so timeless is that no matter where you are in life, you'll find yourself somewhere in this story. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just see yourself in a whole new light. We begin with a wealthy man who has two sons. This man owns land, property, and likely has a lot of servants working for him. By all accounts, he's a successful figure in his community, and his sons are expected to follow in his footsteps. But something unexpected happens. The younger son, let's call him the prodigal son, comes to his father with a bold request. He says, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance now." Now, to us today, that might sound like a simple request. But back then, it was shocking. In ancient Jewish culture, inheritance was usually passed down after the father had died. By asking for his inheritance early, it's almost like the younger son is saying, "I wish you were dead already. I want out." Can you imagine how hurtful that must have been for the father? But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of getting angry or refusing, the father agrees. He divides his wealth and gives his younger son his portion. The son takes the money and leaves. He's excited to live life on his own terms, far away from his family, responsibilities, and the rules of home. He travels to a distant country, where he begins a wild, carefree lifestyle. In this distant land, the prodigal son is living it up. He's spending money on parties, new clothes, maybe even on people who pretend to be his friends. At first, it's thrilling. He feels free and independent. But eventually, the money runs out. And just when things couldn't get worse, a famine hits the country. Now he's in a foreign place with no money, no food, and no friends. He's broken alone. The prodigal son hits rock bottom. In desperation, he finds a job feeding pigs, an unthinkable job for a Jewish man, because pigs were considered unclean animals in that culture. And here he is, so hungry that he wishes he could eat the food he's feeding to the pigs. It's at this lowest point that something clicks. The prodigal son starts to think about his father's house. He realizes that even the hired servants back home are living better than he is. He thinks to himself, "I'm going to go back to my father. I've messed up too much to be called his son again, but maybe he'll hire me as a servant." So, he begins the long journey back home. He's rehearsing his apology in his head, thinking of how to tell his father he was wrong, that he squandered everything. He's expecting anger, maybe even rejection. But here's where the story takes an amazing turn. While the son is still a long way off, his father sees him coming. Now, what does that tell us? It means the father has been watching, waiting, hoping for his son to return. And instead of waiting for the son to reach him, the father runs toward him. In this time, it was considered undignified for a grown man to run, especially a wealthy landowner. But the father doesn't care about social norms or appearances. He's so filled with love and joy that his son has returned, that he runs to meet him. The son begins to say, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm not worthy to be called your son." But the father doesn't even let him finish. He embraces his son, kisses him, and calls for his servants. He tells them, "Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Let's have a feast and celebrate. My son was dead, but now he's alive again. He was lost, but now he's found." To fully understand how powerful this story is, we have to look at it through the lens of the culture in which it was told. In the ancient world, the family unit was everything. Sons were expected to honor their father, help manage the family's wealth, and carry on the family name. When the younger son asked for his inheritance, it wasn't just about money. He was essentially breaking ties with his family. It was a huge act of disrespect. And yet, the father's reaction is radical. In this culture, many fathers would have disowned a son for such an act. But this father represents something bigger. He symbolizes God's unconditional love for us. No matter how far we've strayed, no matter how badly we've messed up, the love is still there, waiting for us to return. Also, remember the significance of the son's job feeding pigs. For a Jewish audience, this was the lowest, most humiliating job possible. Pigs were considered impure, and to work with them was degrading. This detail emphasizes just how far the prodigal son had fallen. But despite his shame, his father accepts him back without hesitation. Now the story doesn't end there. While the younger son and the father are celebrating, the older brother comes into the picture. He's been working hard in the fields and hears music and dancing. When he finds out that the party is for his younger brother, he's furious. He refuses to go inside. He says to his father, "I've been working for you all these years, never disobeyed, and you never gave me a party. But when this son of yours comes back after wasting everything, you throw a feast for him?" The father responds with patience and kindness. He says, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." This part of the story teaches us another important lesson. The older brother represents those of us who might struggle with pride and resentment. Sometimes, when we've been following the rules or doing everything right, we can feel entitled to special treatment. The older brother had forgotten that grace and love are not earned. They are freely given. So, what can we take away from this story? First and foremost, it's a story of forgiveness. The father's love for his son is unconditional. No matter how badly the son messed up, he was welcomed back with open arms. This is a reminder to us that no matter what mistakes we've made in life, we can always return home. There's always room for forgiveness and redemption. The prodigal son also teaches us about humility. He had to hit rock bottom before realizing that he needed to return to his father. In the same way, sometimes we need to go through tough times to realize what truly matters. And let's not forget the lesson from the older brother. This part of the story reminds us to check our hearts. Are we quick to judge others or hold resentment when they receive grace? Or can we celebrate alongside them, understanding that love and grace are infinite and not something we compete for? At the end of the day, this parable is about love. Unconditional, unlimited, and overflowing love. Whether we relate to the prodigal son, the older brother, or the father, this story invites us to embrace grace in our own lives and extend it to others. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to share your own reflections on the prodigal son in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.